today's class will be dealing with the new poem. It is titled My Grandmother's House and it is written by Kamala Das. Okay, the name of the poem is My Grandmother's House, written by Kamala Das. Now, Kamala Das is a very familiar name to all of you. Basically, all Indians and especially all Malayalis know this person, and she is Kamala Das, also known by the name Madhavi Kuti or Kamala Suraya. She was born in 1934 and passed away in 2009. She's an Indo-English writer from Kerala. She has been famous for her English as well as Malayalam works. She, as a writer, she has been a poet, a novelist, a columnist, and a lot of poems have been published that are very popular, like A Hot Noon in Malabar, Sunshine Cat. The particular poem that we have to learn today, My Grandmother's House, are all very famous. The other fictive works that have autobiographical tinges to it, they are Nirmadalam, Enda Katha, and all that. So that is all about Kamala Das or Kamala Suraya, or popularly known among Malayalis as Madhavi Kuti. Okay, so let's delve into the poem. Before coming into the poem, you might be already familiar, but otherwise, I'll be just telling you a slight introduction that usually Kamala poems are featured or characterized by nostalgia. Usually, the characters in Madhavi Kutti's poems have either a nostalgia for the past or a nostalgia for some lost lover, something like that. The particular character or the protagonist or the hero heroine of the poem will always be alone, or they'll be lost in love and all that. So usually we find a sad nostalgic tone in her poems, and this poem is also something like that. This poem is about my grandmother's house. I hope you can see the lines properly. My grandmother's house, written by Kamala Das. So I'll just recite the poem, My Grandmother's House. There is a house now far away where once I received love. That woman died. The house withdrew into silence. Snakes moved among books I was then too young to read. And my blood turned cold like the moon. How often I think of going there, to peer through blind eyes of windows, or just listen to the frozen air, or in wild despair pick an armful of darkness to bring it here, to lie behind my bedroom door like a brooding dog. You cannot believe, darling, can you, that I lived in such a house and was proud and loved? I, who have lost my way and beg now at strangers' doors to receive love, at least in small change? Okay, so this is the very short poem. I have recited it for you. Now let's look at the line by line analysis. So this is a very short poem. I might have already understood that the main person referred to in the poem is my grandmother, the poet's own grandmother. So this poem is written from a first person perspective. So first person, I, my, right? So the person is referring to her grandmother. Now what has happened to the grandmother? Let's see. There is a house now far away where once I received love. Okay, so she is referring to a house. There is a house. And where is this house now? It is now far away. So the person is living far away from the house. In reference to that, there is a reference to a house, and that house is far, far away from the person. And what is the speciality of this house? It is a house where she once received love. Long, long ago, in the distant past, she received love in this house. Okay, so that is the reference to the house. And from the title of the poem, we already know whose is this house. It is her grandmother's house. So, there is a house now far away where once I received love. That woman died. Okay, so the woman of that house died. So in the second line, we get a reference to the grandmother. And what is the current status? The grandmother is not living. She has died. She is dead. That woman died. The house withdrew into silence. Okay, so sometimes we can imagine when a person dies at a house, the household is silent. In Malayalam we say shmashana mogara, hmm? Dead silence, and that is a very disturbing silence, right? So just like that, this house withdrew into silence. What is withdraw? To go backwards, right? So once, this house probably must have been so noisy. There were a lot of sounds in this house, but now, after the death of my grandmother, this house withdrew into silence. Okay, now, next we can see some references about the house. Snakes moved among books. I was then too young to read. Okay, so in this reference, we get an idea that there were a lot of books at that house. Okay, and most of the books, I was a very young person to read. I mean, I was a young person not to understand many of the books. Many of the books were meant for the grown ups. Snakes moved among books. I was too young to read. So I'm remembering my grandmother's house, that there were so many books there. And most of them I did not understand because I was too young to read. And snakes moved among them. Now, there is an image of the snakes moving there. So it is actually a sexual image. Usually, snakes, when used in a fiction or a literary purpose, usually they refer to a sexual image. So probably what the poet is trying to say is, the books, snakes moved among the books means some of the books that were there in the home library of the grandmother were uh, too were meant for grown-ups or adults. They had sexual references which I did not understand as a young reader. Or it can also mean on the literal sense that snakes moved. Where do snakes come? When there is no noise, when there is everything calm and quiet, right? So probably after the death of the woman, the house withdrew into silence, and naturally snakes might have come, because we know that in Kerala, especially in bigger Tarawads and all, we know that there are carve, right? There are places for the snakes, so it is very common for snakes to come in and out of Kerala houses, right? So it can be that also. It can be either of that, either the snakes really coming and moving among the books in the library, or it could mean that the poet was too young to read the books, because there were a lot of such images. Okay, now, and my blood turned cold like the moon. Okay, usually our blood is warm, right? But my blood turned cold like the moon. So after the grandmother's death, my blood turned cold like the moon. The moon is a cold place. And she says, she uses a simile there to compare the coldness she felt after the grandmother's death. She compares her blood turning cold like the moon. Now, you know that death has a very freezing coldness, right? So that is the reference here. Okay, so this much reference gives two ideas. One is about the grandmother's house, and then is the grandmother herself. There is a house that is too far away from where I am now, and that is a place where I received love from my grandmother. Now what happened? The grandmother is dead. Now the house withdrew into silence, and there is nobody in the house. Okay, only there are snakes moving around the books in the house, and my blood turned cold like the moon. Now there is no warmth in my life. Blood is usually warm, but now my blood has turned cold. How often I think of going there, to peer through blind eyes of windows, or just listen to the frozen air. Okay, let's look at those three lines. How often I think of going there. Okay, it has been a few years, or it has been a much of a great time that my grandmother has gone away. She has died. But many times I feel like going there. but I know that there is nobody in the house. Then why do I want to go back? Just to peer through blind eyes of windows. Peer, P-E-E-R here means to look, to look. Hmm? So why do I want to go in an empty house? I know my grandmother is not there, she has died, but I want to go there. Several times I have felt like going back to that house just to look into the house through the blind eyes of windows. See, you have another image there. Blind eyes of windows. Why are the windows blind? Because they are shut, they are closed. So probably after the death of the grandmother, maybe her children are all abroad. Maybe she was the only person living in that house, and now nobody is living there. So naturally, the house will be shut. The doors and the windows will be shut. So that is a reference here. The shut windows, the shut doors. So if something is shut, you can't see, right? What is happening inside. So I just want to stand outside and look into the house. What is happening there through the blind eyes of windows? Or just listen to the frozen air. Okay. I know that there is nobody in the household. So naturally, the air will have that silence, and I just want to listen to that. And there is no warmth in that house because my grandmother has already gone. It is too cold there. So I just want to listen to how the air is frozen, the cold air. I just want to listen to its sound. Or okay, so these are the things that she wants to do if she gets a chance to go back to her grandmother's house. She feels like going back there. So often she thinks of going back. But, and what does she want to do? She wants to look into the house through the blind eyes of windows. And she just wants to listen to that frozen air inside the home. Then, next thing, what does she want to do? Or in wild despair, pick an armful of darkness to bring it here. Okay, so she is now living far away from the grandmother's house. She is at a very distant land. So, what does she want to do? She wants to go to the grandmother's house, probably to pick something, to take something. To pick what? To pick an armful of darkness. Now, the rooms of the household is shut, the gate and the doors are all locked. So, naturally, the lights are out in the house. All that remains in that grandmother's house is silence and darkness. So, if I go, even if I go back to my grandmother's house, all that I'm going to get is darkness. But it's okay. I can just pick an armful of darkness, just like we take an armful of apples or an armful of mangoes, right? When it is the season, we go and take a handful of, guava or a handful of rambutan and all that, right? The fruits, just like that. She does not want to take any fruits back to where she's living. She wants to take an armful of darkness. And why does she want the armful of darkness? To bring it here to my place where I am living right now. Okay, my grandmother is my past. My grandmother's house is also far away. If I get a chance to go to my grandmother's house, I want to pick up an armful of darkness to bring it here to the real place that I'm living right now. Why do I want to bring it here? Pick an armful of darkness to bring it here, to lie behind my bedroom door like a brooding dog. Okay, those of you who have pets might understand this. Pets like to brood near the behind the door or near the bed, right? They'd like to cuddle with on the sofa and all that, right? So here the reference is to the pet dog cuddling near the carpet behind the door. So I just want to pick darkness so that darkness from my grandmother's house will be my pet dog. I don't have a pet dog, but I want to take darkness from my grandmother's house so that it will act like a pet dog behind my bedroom door. Okay, now dogs are faithful, you know that, right? Dogs are the best friends of a man, who are so faithful to men, right? So just like a faithful friend that you receive from a pet dog, I want that darkness from my grandmother's house so that it will be faithful to me like a pet dog, so that I can keep it in my bedroom. Okay, So this is what she wants to take from her grandmother's house. If she gets a chance to visit her grandmother's house, this is what she wants to do. And as the poem comes to the conclusion, we can see, you cannot believe, darling, can you? So this first person, the poet, is addressing you, probably the reader. Hmm? Oh, reader, you may not understand this thing. You cannot believe, darling, can you, that I lived in such a house and was proud and loved? Do you believe that? Do you believe that I lived in such a house where I was so proud as a child? I received love. I had a past where I was loved. I had a past where I was a proud and confident person. Do you believe that, darling, that I had a past? You cannot believe, darling, can you, that I lived in such a house and was proud and loved? I, who have lost my way and beg now at strangers' doors. What is my situation now? Right now, I am lost. I have lost my way. I am lost. And what do I do now? I beg at strangers' doors. I'm not a beggar woman. I don't beg for money. What do I beg for? I beg for love because I don't have anybody to love me right now. So, do you believe that in my past I had somebody to love? Because you have seen only my present situation where I am begging at strangers' doors for love. I who have lost my way and beg now at strangers' doors to receive love, at least in small change. Okay, so beggars usually get a small change, coins or little bits of currency that we give to the beggars, right? So this is the image here. She does not beg for money. What does she do? She is not begging for money, but she is begging for love, at least for a small change, at least for a small amount of love. That's what she is doing right now. So this is the present situation of the poet, that she is, you can say that she is lonely. She does not have anybody to love, and now she is remembering the past, the glorious past where she was loved by her grandmother wholeheartedly. And when you are loved, you feel confident, you feel joyful, you feel that the whole world is with you, right? So this confidence is lost, this pride is lost, this joy is lost for the poet. So that is why she is asking the reader, or whoever is listening to her, listener, reader, darling, do you believe, seeing my present condition, that I was such a happy person in my past? Do you believe that, because right now I'm a lonely person begging for love at strangers' doors? Do you believe that I had a past where I had people to love me? Do you believe that? So, with this question, the poem comes to an end. Okay, so this small poem makes a reference to her grandmother's house. It is a nostalgic poem where the poet thinks about her past and how her grandmother used to love her, and how she wants to go back to that house where the grandmother lived, because she knows that there is nobody there. The grandmother died, and now there is nobody. The house is all shut. There is only darkness and silence remaining there, and there is nobody there. But still she wants to go there, because even the darkness there is faithful compared to the people in her life. In the present situation, people are not faithful to her. Probably she has had so many relationships, and they did not turn out faithful to her. They did not turn out loyal to her, which is why she don't have any friendships or any people to love her. So she wants to go back and collect a little bit of darkness from her grandmother's house, because at least that would be faithful to her. So, in the end, she asks a question to the reader or to the listener: uh, would you believe that I had such a glorious past? So, you can see that there's a comparison between the poet's present and the past. Okay, she had a confident, joyful childhood, a past that is nowhere comparable to her bitter present. So, I hope you have understood the poem. I'll just come to a few images that we can discuss from the poem. One image is the image of movement. There are certain images you can see in the third line. The house withdrew into silence. It is a movement. Withdraw means to go backward. So the house is moving back in silence. That moving back is an image of movement. Okay, again in the same line you can see snakes moved among books. Again, that is an image of movement there. Okay, snakes moved. Again, you can see the constant image of going there and coming here, right? She wants to go there, where? At the grandmother's house. And she also wants to bring the darkness here to her place, right? So there are a lot of images that show movement in this poem. Withdrew into silence, snakes moved, going there, bringing it here, like that. Then you can see that there are some images of exchange here. What are the images of exchange happening there? Receiving, giving and receiving, right? What exchange is happening here? The exchange of love. In the second line, she is recollecting her past where she received love. She wants to go back to that house where that woman gave her love. The grandmother gave her love. So received love. Again, in the end, in the last line, she says that she is begging at strangers' doors to receive love, at least in a small change. So here you can see that exchange image, giving and receiving of love, right? Okay. Then there are a lot of visual images, like the snakes moving among the books. I have already told you it can be also a sexual image, meaning why the poet, as a young reader, could not read those books at the grandmother's house, right? As a young person. So, snakes moving. Then again, she wants to go back to the grandmother's house and she wants to peer through the blind eyes of windows, right? So, the blind eyes of windows, that's also a visual image, right? The shut doors and windows, that's also a visual image. Again, darkness. Darkness is the opposite of sight, vision, right? Darkness is the opposite of vision, so it's also a visual image. Yeah, darkness. Then again you have another image of the pet dog, the brooding dog behind the bedroom door. Remember, she wants to take an armful of darkness so that she can take it to the present home to keep it like a brooding dog behind her bedroom door. So that even that is a visual image. And there is a sound technique of alliteration in that last line. Brooding dog behind the bedroom door. You can see that sound of b and d repeating, right? Brooding behind bedroom, dog door, right? So it's a poetic technique called alliteration where sounds repeat at the beginning of words. So that is called alliteration. Alliteration of the sound b, brooding behind bedroom, all have the same sound b at the beginning. Again, dog, door, all that have the sound d. So there is an alliteration. It's a poetic technique. Okay. And yeah. So then you have some images of touch. Okay, tactile images. Visual images were the images of sight. Tactile images are images pertaining to the touch, sense of touch. So what are the tactile images in the poem? You can, the frozen air, frozenness, cold, it's all something that you feel, right? You can feel in your skin. So frozen air is a tactile image. Also the blood turning cold like the moon. Moon is a visual image, but cold, blood turned cold like moon means she's feeling chilly. She's shivering with cold. So both these tactile images show the chilly, cold feeling. And what does that symbolize? That death itself is cold. There is a frozenness associated with death. And whose death is here? Mentioned as the grandmother's death. So the tactile images, frozen air and blood turned cold like moon, refer to the death of her grandmother. Finally, we have already discussed themes. She is longing for her grandmother and she is also having a nostalgia for the glorious past she has had, and also she is troubled with solitude. There's nobody in her life. She's alone and she's feeling sad about that. Okay, so this is a small analysis of the short poem My Grandmother's House by Kamala Das. So if you have any doubts, you may please ask now.